Good morning. Brother Jeremy just pointed at me and said it's 9 o'clock and time to start. And I'd been making a mistake. I hadn't adjusted my pocket watch properly. It's a minute slow. So, 9 o'clock, time to start. Glad to see everybody here. The Howards are home today. One of them is sick. They're not wanting to take any chances with infecting people. Got a lot of others on the sick list that we need to keep in mind with Brother Terry and medicine adjustments, different people. And for those that want to know about me, I've got my new medicine, but it hasn't seemed to do any good yet. But it may take a few days for it to settle in. But my systolic pressure is still staying in the upper 80s and mid-range 90s, which is a little bit of concern, but just need to get it down if we can. Anybody else on the sick, injured, walking wounded list we need to think about? Cheryl Lynn's adjusting her medicine. Hadn't heard from her today. Is she doing better? Okay. I sent her, when y'all probably saw it, but when she sent the email out and said that she was on the new medicines and all of what they had done for her and what they had found out, I told her at least she and I could commiserate on the trimmer end. We can compare notes. So keep her in your prayers, please. Anyone else?
It's pretty much to the point that I don't have anything else to do. Originally, the kids are actually moving up the hospital until the time passes. They'll be up there for the next couple of months. So you'll remember that. Also, a friend of mine, David Chandler, who's the chief of the buildings and fire department, found out last night he had a severe heart attack. He was in the hospital. Said this morning they moved him critically safe.
Oh. Okay. Anyone else? What's the latest on him? Okay. And Janice just reminded me of Miranda's father, Buddy Littles. Keep him in your prayers. So, it's down to about any day now on him too. So, yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. That it? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, it's good to hear all that good news. Tabitha, good to hear the good news about everybody. So, Brother Cox, would you lead us in a prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we come to you this time, thanking you for the blessings that you poured out upon us this past week. We are especially thankful for the blessings that we have as we assemble together. Help us be with the speaker of this lesson. Help us as we listen that we will glean the most from this time. Be with us in the worship service, and we pray that everything that we say and do will be pleasing in your sight. This prayer we pray in Christ's name.
Gonna give you a test to start with. We're in lesson 5. We're going to start in 2 Chronicles chapter 16. And the first part of that verse brings on the test. It says, in the 6th and 30th year of the reign of Asa, and we're going to pause right there. Who was Asa's father? Now we're in the southern kingdom, Judah. Who is Asa's father? Abijam. How long did Abijam reign or rule? 3 years. We've talked about it probably being 2, but the way the Jews count it would be 3, so we're going to use their terminology of 3 years. Who was Abijam's father? Rehoboam. And how long did Rehoboam reign? That's Asa. Try 17. Rehoboam reigned 17 years. Is that right? He was 41 when he started reign. There you go. Okay, so if Rehoboam reigned for 17 years, Abijam, his son, reigned for 3 years, and now Asa is going to reign for 41 years, but we're in his 36th year. What year are we talking about in the divided kingdom? 20 plus 3 plus 36 gives you what? The 20 plus 36 is 56. We're in the 56th year of the divided kingdom. What I did, if y'all just think about it for a moment, as we move along, as slow as we're moving through this, 26 lessons worth and covering all the kings. Now, when we get finished with it and look back, I don't think anybody's going to be able to sit down and rattle off all the kings in order of the north and south. But at least if we go along and build on it this way, it will give you a good familiarity of the kings. Both, we did that with the United Kingdom, now doing it with the divided kingdom. You can start at least putting things in sort of a timeline, into a time and space, and make it fit just a little bit better. Or at least that's my opinion on it. But in the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, king of Israel, now we're talking about the northern kingdom, came up against Judah and built Ramah, to the intent that he might let none go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. Why and why would he not want people going to the king of Judah, to Asa? Where is Asa's hometown? Where is he reigning from? Southern kingdom, Jerusalem. And that was the main spot, and that was the spot at the United Kingdom. So now we're talking about, and Ramah is just a little ways outside of Jerusalem, and there was a Ramah, but apparently here he is building on or adding to it to prevent people from going to Jerusalem to worship. Why would that be? Why?
Same issue there, though. They're gonna rise up against you, they're gonna kill me. They'll realize they don't need you if I allow them to go down there and worship.
Exactly. It goes back to the reason Jeroboam set up all those religious things that he set up, the way of worship, and set up a temple in Bethel and set up a temple in Dan. It was to try to keep the people in the northern kingdom in the north and not let them assimilate or get back together with the south.
Jeroboam here probably had a pretty valid point. They did allow too much of that to go on. This entire kingdom, the way everything worked, was centered around that point of worship, Jerusalem. That's what God intended it to be. Even before it became this monarchy and it was a theocracy, before that, when God ruled, before the kings were even introduced, everything was centered around the temple and the worship that was to take place there. The feasts and the festivals, things known that marked the time throughout the year that God had established. So I think they were smart to be scared of this, but of course they handled it in the wrong way by going away from God there wherever it was.
And he had quite a challenge on his hand, because how many times were the men supposed to go to Jerusalem? How many times a year? 3 times a year. So it's not just once a year that he has to battle this. It's almost a continuous effort to keep the people separated and keep those in the northern kingdom in the northern kingdom. So Baasha was building that place in Ramah, trying to do all of this. In verse 2 says that Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasure of the house of the Lord and the king's house, and sent to Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, that dwelt at Damascus, saying, again, a test. Where is Syria in relationship to Judah, the kingdom, the southern kingdom, and the northern kingdom? Where is Syria in relationship to all this? Up north, way up north. It's on the northern side of the kingdom. I'm going to show you the importance of that in just a few minutes, but just trying to put things in perspective here. In verse 3, it says, there was a league between me and thee. Old-fashioned way of talking. What is a league in this context?
This is
Treaty, covenant, partnership, help each other out type thing. So Asa, all the way down in the southern kingdom, Judah, made a pact, a league with Syria, which was on the other side of the northern kingdom. And he said, there's a league between me and thee as there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go, break thy league with Baasha, king of Israel, that he may depart from me. So apparently, in that one verse that tells you that Syria and the northern kingdom sort of had a pact, is going to take care of each other. And now Asa is saying, break your agreement with them. I'm giving you all this gold and silver. Make an agreement with me so we can be together on this. Does that sound strange? If you really think about it, for those of you that keep track of American history and world history and all, that happens every day today, particularly in the region that we're talking about. There has never been a solid, good, long-lasting peace when you come to Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Syria. They always bond with the one where they're benefiting the most, and they will change sides in a heartbeat to go fight the other group. So to me, at least, all this makes sense. You know, that goes all the way back, and why they do it today is because they've always done it type thing. Questions, comments? Okay. The timeline that we're in right now is, well, if we're in the 56th year of the divided kingdom, the kingdom divided in 931 BC. So if we subtract 56 years from 931, what do we get? We're in the 880s roughly. 880, 875, 880s roughly BC time frame. Yes, sir. Anything else? Okay. So in verse 4, Ben-Hadad hearkened unto King Asa, sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel, and they smote Ijon and Dan and Abel-maim and all the store cities of Naphtali. Okay, remember that when we talked about Dan, that there was actually two Dans, the small portion of land that they had been allotted, and that wasn't enough, so they went all the way north outside of the allotted territory and captured and built their own city and named it Dan. So when Syria comes down, they're now taking Dan, that city, Ijon, and then Naphtali, his territory was right in that region also, right below that. So now they're taking all the storehouses of Naphtali. So this agreement that Asa made with Baasha has gone in and done a lot of fighting for him and taken over a lot of the territory. And verse 5 says, it came to pass when Baasha heard it that he left off building of Ramah and let his work cease. Okay, he's got Brother Jeremy Day being in the Army. He can tell you, what do you do if you've got two battles going on and one's not going well and you've got more people there, then which area are you going to let go to try to go help the other? So it was a judgment call there here that he made that, hey, this can wait. We've got to refortify or fortify this area. Now he's changed to defense. There you go. So it came to pass when he had heard it, he left off. And then verse 6 says, then Asa the king took all Judah. And we know that that's a slight exaggeration. He didn't take every living soul in Judah, just the group. Carried away the stones of Ramah and the timber thereof, wherewith Baasha was building, and he built therewith Geba and Mizpah. If you look at Jerusalem, and Ramah was over here, Mizpah and Gibeah are right in there. So he didn't go very far to build those cities, but now he's taking away those stones and building the other city.
You see the back and forth with Ramah is further south. It actually sits more into Judah than on the Israel side of the line, if you will, where he was trying to push south. And he was on that main road that traveled northwest or north-south through the kingdoms. And so he was shutting off not only that mode of transport, but also from the ocean, from the Mediterranean as well. That route by building Ramah where he did, or fortifying Ramah. And so now we see Mizpah's pushed back north again, closer to Bethel. And so that's Asa's kind of taking back a little bit and putting him on his heel.
Well, since you mentioned that, if you really look at the old map, Ramah would have been in the given territory of Benjamin, which was taken into Judah. So all of the main stuff going on there was right where Benjamin was, with Jerusalem and Ramah and all of those, Bethel. So, but anyway, the fight's going on. And verse 7, at that time, Hananiah the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said unto him, because thou hast relied on the king of Syria. Get this next part. To me, this is the key to the whole situation. And not relied on the Lord thy God. Therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubims a huge host with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because thou didst rely on the Lord, he delivered them into thy hand. So he's doing a little comparison. When you relied on God, God helped you and you won. Here you're not relying on God. Verse 9, for the eyes of the Lord ran to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Herein thou hast done foolishly. Therefore, from henceforth thou shalt have wars. Rely on God. God helps. Rely on mankind or something other than God, it's not going to turn out so well. But then Asa got mad at whom? Asa didn't get mad at himself. He got mad at the messenger. Was the messenger the cause of what was going to take place? Was God the cause of what was going to take place? Who was responsible for what was going to take place? Asa. And we find that happening a lot in today too. If you look around, generally speaking, when somebody gets their feelings hurt because of something they did, somebody speaks to them about something they did, they get mad at the messenger. I've used this example many times before. I don't know if Jeremy ever ran into the situation or not in his military times, or Bobby. But when I had to call people in for a counseling session because of what they did, now remember, they earned that counseling session because of what they did. But when I tried to counsel with them and point out their faults, what would they automatically do? They got upset with me because I am picking on them. They're not sitting back looking at what they did and what caused that meeting to take place. That's, I hate to use the word human nature, but that's human nature. And it continues today. There you go. Verse 11, and behold, the acts of Asa, first and last, lo, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. And Asa in the 39th year of his reign was diseased in his feet until his disease was exceedingly great. Yet in his disease he sought not the Lord, but to the physicians. He's a slow learner. Wasn't good enough that he was going to have all these wars because he didn't rely on God. Now he's got a medical issue going on. Not sure, but the way it's worded and all, with disease in his feet, it was probably a disease we know as gout, which starts generally with the big toe and is very painful and all, but it was very great. But again, he relied on physicians instead of God. Now that does not mean for us today that we're not to go to physicians. Physicians are great, but we don't need to leave God out of the mix. They wasn't all that great, all that knowledgeable. But still today, my mom and dad's doctor up in Huntsville, when they had to go in for surgery, he was not the surgeon, but one of them never went into surgery without him being there. And they always had a prayer before the surgery took place. If I'm going to have a surgery, which I've had a few, but they generally put me out before the doctor even sticks his nose in the room. But I would love to know that doctor, of whatever persuasion he is, was at least having a prayer or talking to God about what was going to take place. That tells me that a physician cares and knows that he has ability given to him that comes from someplace else that he can rely on. And physicians today, there has been a lot of study on this recently. Well, recently, over the last 40, 50 years, that the people who have a strong faith do better in adverse situations medically than those that have no faith. Is that a surprise? It shouldn't be. But here Asa relied on the physician instead of God. And then he died a few years later, slept with his fathers, buried in the city of David. Now, let's try to